What is going on, everybody? In this video, we'll be taking a look at AWS Amplify. Amplify is a framework that allows you to build applications that leverage AWS services a lot quicker. If you've watched the last video, it took us roughly 40 minutes to build a React application that we deployed with S3 and that leveraged Lambda and DynamoDB. Using Amplify, you can use services like API Gateway, authentication with Cognito, storage S3, things of that nature. And so what we'll be doing in this video is we'll be building a React application that uses AWS Cognito. For those of you who are not familiar with Cognito, essentially it is similar to IAM, so it's a identity access managed service, and it's more geared towards end users in that, typically for IAM users, you would have a cloud admin that would create them and then pass them out to the people within the company. Well, Cognito is more for users to be able to sign up. And so we'll go ahead and get started here. So if you haven't, you can watch this quick little walkthrough on how to download the CLI. But once you have the CLI created, you're going to want to run create React app, and we will call this my app. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video because my computer is pretty slow and this is going to take a couple of minutes, so I'll be right back. Once you've initialized your project, you're going to want to go ahead and navigate to it, and then we're going to run amplify init. And what this is going to do is it's going to initialize our project as a Amplify project. And so we'll go ahead and pick our favorite code editor. Mine is Visual Studio Code. And then we're going to select JavaScript because we are building a web application as opposed to mobile. We're going to go ahead and select React. And then for the rest, you can go ahead and select the defaults. This is going to take a little while. Oh, I forgot. So if you haven't already created a IAM user, it's going to prompt you to do so. I've already done it. So I'm just going to select my default user. And as I was saying, this is going to take a little bit. So again, I'm going to pause the video and then come back when it's done. As you can see, it created IAM roles that will be used by our application to talk to various services. And so now what we're going to want to do is import two additional libraries. The first one being AWS Amplify and the second one being AWS Amplify React. Oh, sorry. I forgot to add. Alright, and while that's loading, I'll go ahead and go back to the page. So if we click the JavaScript API here, that is not what I wanted. Get started. If we click this, web get started, this is what I wanted. So in the corner right here, it has things that will leverage React. And so what we'll be doing is we'll be adding the with authenticator. And essentially what this does is if you wrap this around a component, it will not render the component until the user has successfully signed in. And still loading. Basically, it will automatically create a form like this for the users to sign up if they haven't already. And then once they're signed up, they can sign in. And so we'll take a look at what that looks like. First, I'm going to open up my project in Visual Studio Code. And we're going to want to add a couple of lines here. So the first thing we're going to want to do is import Amplify, and that will be from the AWS Amplify library. Then we're going to want to import our AWS exports. And this is automatically created when you initialize your Amplify project. And now we're going to import the with authenticator from AWS Amplify React. And then we're going to configure Amplify by passing in our AWS exports, like so. Now, before we can leverage the with authenticator, we're going to have to create the backend services. And so to create or configure AWS Cognito, what we're going to do is we're going to run amplify add auth for authentication. And this is going to, we're going to select the default configuration, and this is going to configure the service locally. And then if we want to actually make changes on the AWS cloud, we're going to have to run amplify push. So we're going to do that. And while that's working, we'll go back here. And like the documentation says, all we need to do is take our with authenticator and wrap our component with it like so. If we go back here, forgot to confirm. And again, this is going to take a little while, so I'm going to pause the video and then come back when it's done. Now that it's finished setting up Cognito, we can go ahead and run our application locally. Alright, sorry about that. That took an extremely long time. So anyways, now what we can do is we can create an account. And so I'm going to call this user Jane Doe. Because we use the default configuration for Cognito, you have to make sure that the password you use has a capital letter, a symbol, and at least one number. And so make sure I do that. The email you enter is going to have to be real because it's going to send a confirmation code. And then the number doesn't really matter unless you set up multi-factor authentication, but it's not done by default. And so we're going to go ahead and click create account. And now you should get a confirmation code by email. Hit confirm. And now we can sign up, or sign in, I should say. And once we sign in, you can see that we can access the rest of our application. And we also get this nice banner at the top that says, "Hello, Jane Doe," and a sign up button. So this is nice, but it doesn't provide a lot of flexibility. If you wanted to create a custom form for one of your applications, you would have to create the form using regular HTML elements and then using some of the functions from the AWS Amplify library in order to talk to Cognito. And so that's what we're going to go ahead and do now. I'm going to stop that. So to begin with, we're going to create two forms. The first one is going to be used for sign up, and then the second one is going to be used for sign in. And so we're going to want to start off by importing React and component from the React library. We're going to export our sign up form component. So we are going to have a username, a password, a email address, a phone number, and we will also be checking whether we have signed up or not. And so in our render function, we are going to get the signed up property from the state, and we're going to check whether they have already signed up or not. This will be the username, the type will be text, the name will be username, and then I'm just going to go ahead and copy that 3 times. I'm going to switch this to the password. We're going to change it to password. Type as text is fine. We're going to switch this to email. And then the last one will be phone number. We'll have a button for submitting. We are going to bind the keyword this to handle change, as well as handle submit. handle change will set the state in response to the value of a given input. And then the handle submit function will use the amplify methods. And so we're going to import off from AWS Amplify. We're also going to need to check whether the user has signed up or not. We're going to need the username, password, email, phone number, all from the state. Alright, so we can use auth.signup and this will take in a username, a password, and then under the attributes object, we're going to pass it an email and a phone number. This is a asynchronous function, so we're going to have to use .then. We're just going to use a console.log for now. And so we only want to do this if the user has not signed in, or signed up I should say. And we're also going to set the state. We're going to set signed up to true. And if we're not signed up, I should do this. What we're going to want to do, or sorry, if we are signed up, we're going to want to confirm. And so we have to do auth.confirm signup. And this function takes in a username and a confirmation code, which we get by email. And I'm going to go ahead and add that to the state. And this will make sense once I write this. So what we're going to do is we're going to return another form. And within that form, we are going to have two labels, the first one being the username and the second one being the confirmation code. That should go here, and this should be username, like so. And again, this is a asynchronous function, so we're gonna have to add .then. Just gonna do a regular console.log. And we're going to catch any errors. Like so. And now we can copy this and switch a few things for our sign-in form. So the sign-in form is just going to need the username and password, will also keep track of whether they are signed in or not. So we don't need any of this. I'm gonna just switch all signed up to signed in. Okay. So let me just check my notes real quick here. Alright, so we don't need the attributes. This we're going to change to sign in. Change this to sign in. Then we're going to change this to sign in. This is just going to need the username. And then down here, rather than rendering a form when we're signed in, we're just going to say that we've signed in. I don't need any of this. Oh. So we're just going to have the username, password, and then the sign in button. And I'm just going to take this and put it right after. I guess we don't really need that. Okay. So the last thing we're going to want to do now is to modify our app to use our sign in and sign up forms. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of this. We're also going to want to import the sign up form and the sign in form. Like so. Alright, so let's just toggle this using a button. Be simpler in the event I make a mistake. So we're going to have to add a state. Let's call this user signed up, and it will be false to begin with. We're going to define a handle toggle button, and this will set the state. To the opposite of what it was previously. And we're going to have to bind the keyword this. We are going to attach that to the onClick event, like so. And now what we're going to want to do is render based off the state. And so if the user is not signed up, we are going to want to render the sign-up form. And if they are, we're going to want to render the sign-in form. And so let's check to see where are our bugs or my mistakes, because I'm sure there are plenty. Honestly, this is going to take a while, so I'm just going to pause the video and come back when it's done. See you guys in a minute. Alright, so it seems confirmation code is not defined on line 13 of the signup form. So line 13 is right here. We need to make this a blank string. Alright, so let's give this a try. If I toggle, I'll toggle between sign up and sign in, which is what we want. I'm going to create a user called Corey Macklin. Oh, that's not going to work. The password also has to be at least 8 characters. Again, you're going to want to use a real email here. And then for the phone number, you have to make sure that you add the area code. So for example, in North America, it's a +1. And then we'll add a random number, because that doesn't really matter. Hit sign up. And it shouldn't have populated those forms. I think it's because I forgot to reset the form. But I'm just going to go ahead and change that to the confirmation code. Hit confirm. And it resetted. I think we still should be fine if I hit toggle. Hopefully. Hold on here. And it worked. There you have it. So that's how you create a custom form that allows users to sign up using AWS Cognito. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Cheers. And we are back for part 2. So I ended the video prematurely. I also wanted to cover a couple of more things that you can do with AWS Amplify. The first is static website hosting. And so if we run Amplify add hosting, it will configure a S3 bucket for our project. You can pick between dev and production. I'm going to pick dev and then talk about it. Let's hit enter for all that. Or sorry, I'm going to, okay, well, I'll talk about it now. So essentially the difference between dev and production is that production uses CloudFront. CloudFront is AWS's CDN service. Basically, it allows your website to be distributed across multiple servers around the world. And so if a person in China wanted to access your web page, it would be a lot faster for the packets to traverse from a server in China than one all the way in North America. But we're just going to use the standard static website hosting because we don't really care about that. But if this were a real website, then you might want to consider that. I'm going to run the amplify publish command, and the amplify publish command differs from the amplify push command in that it will actually build our project. In other words, it will use the create React app scripts to bundle and minify our JavaScript files, and it will just upload the build directory to a bucket, and it will configure it like we did in the last tutorial, so it'll make it public, all that type of stuff, and all we have to do is visit the URL. Anyways, I'm going to pause the video until this is done, and then I'll come back. As you can see, it spit out the URL that we need to go to access our website. And so there you have it right here. As you can see, it's being hosted within an S3 bucket. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is how to delete the resources. So if you're like me, after you've finished working with your project, you want to delete all the resources so that you don't incur any additional costs. Well, when you use Amplify, it went ahead and created a whole bunch of services that you really don't know too much about. And so if you want to delete all those resources, you can simply run amplify delete. Hit yes, and it will delete all of the resources in the cloud for you. So now for real this time, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I will upload the code to GitHub and share it in the description down below. Cheers.